Hey, I'm Tammy and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I thought I'd share 10 free sewing patterns that'll be perfect for your autumn wardrobe as the weather gets a little bit colder. So a lot of these examples are actually new that I've never heard of before, so make sure you watch right to the end to see all the freebies that I'm going to share. As usual, for each pattern, I'll be sharing some examples and inspiration pics to help you kind of elevate and see the potential in these free patterns. So the first pattern that I've never actually heard of before, I think it's a brand new pattern, and it's actually the Westend Jacket by Peppermint magazine. The pictures look absolutely beautiful. I love this tie-dye jacket effect. It looks really cool. So the Westend Jacket features a simple collar, a button up front, and then two patch pockets either side of the jacket. I actually really like how simple and classic this looks. I also realized just now when I was looking through it that it's actually a unisex pattern, so it can be sewn for lots of different body types. So the pattern actually recommends to make this in a nice medium weight fabric such as a wool or any sort of kind of thick cotton, but I even think a nice denim or basically any coating fabric would work perfectly with this pattern. You do have to bear in mind that it is actually an unlined jacket, so you want to make sure the fabric you use has enough structure and it's not too lightweight or flimsy to give a nice kind of jacket look. I found this example that I really like, and it's actually a cream kind of beige corduroy fabric. Or if you are looking for something a bit more cozy, a bit more casual, this is a great example picture that I found of a flannel fabric used in a jacket sort of style. I really love this sort of effect. I think it's very autumn, very wintry. I also found this example that I really like. It's actually a really fun patchwork vibe jacket. I think you could definitely play around with, like maybe cutting up the arms, cutting up the hem, and having contrasting fabrics to play around with in the same garment. I think it adds quite a nice touch to something that can feel a bit too basic, but if you're playing around with fabric choices and especially color blocking different elements, this could look really cool. So the next pattern that I found is actually the Orchid dress by Helen's Closet. I've seen this all over Instagram. A lot of people have sewn it already, and it is a new pattern. So basically it's an A-line style dress that has a bias binding neckline, straps and armholes. It looks like a very versatile top and dress. You can actually make a top version, not just a dress version. Even though it's a really simple pattern, I think this will work great with things layered over it, like a t-shirt underneath, even a roll neck underneath, or a jumper thrown over for extra warmth. I think if I were to sew this, I'd probably slim down the skirt slightly. It is very A-line, and I'd probably want something a bit sleeker. This is a great example of maybe how you could hack this slightly just to make it a bit smoother on the sides. And I just love this sort of like deep burgundy shade of a dress with a roll neck underneath. That's what I imagine I'd probably sew something like this off. Or I even found this example picture of a person wearing like a jumper and then like a really nice kind of satiny dress underneath, and I think that would be a great way to wear this dress. So the next dress I found is something I've never ever seen before. I just found it online by Googling. I really love this pattern because it feels very slouchy, very loose fitting, but also still really stylish. Obviously you need to use stretchy fabrics for this dress. It is a knit pattern, but I just think it would make such a nice autumn winter dress. I think if I were to make this, I'd actually play around with two different versions of it. I'd do one that's actually a bit shorter. I don't really like where this pattern sits. I think it's really awkwardly at her knee. I kind of think if you're going to sew it should be higher, maybe like mid-thigh level. Like this dress that I found online is a really nice way of maybe how I would sew this pattern. So in a really bright color, and it's a bit shorter, so maybe mid-thigh. Or what you would do, like this example, is go like really bold, use like black fabric and go all the way down to the floor. I think that'd be such a nice statement dress. Yeah, I kind of want to make this dress. Now that I've seen this picture, I think this is going to be such a nice winter statement piece. So the next pattern that I found is the Milton Pinafore by Peppermint magazine. I've actually talked about this pattern before on some of my previous free sewing pattern videos. If you haven't seen those, I'll link them down in the description box below. But what this is a really fun, playful pinafore style dress. It has like a really deep V neckline at the front, and then the back has a button closure and thick strap. So I'm not really a fan of the fabric they've used in the photo. I think if I were to sew this, I'd probably sew it in a really deep shade of fabric and maybe something a bit more structure. So I think for like autumn or winter, this would be really good sewn in a corduroy fabric. So if I were to sew this pattern, I would actually shorten the length of the dress and then use a really bright pop of color. I think corduroy would work beautifully. This is a lovely example that I found of maybe how I would kind of interpret this pattern into something a bit more modern. But I also found this example where it's more of like a dungaree style dress, but I think you kind of get the idea of using something that's like rust color, a bit deeper in shade, and then playing around with maybe a shorter dress of the pinafore style. But overall, a really, really lovely pattern. I've actually never sewn this, even though I've talked about it before. I do want to try this, but I think I would definitely sew this in a corduroy for autumn. So the next pattern I wanted to talk about is the Hazel Coat by Mood Fabrics. I've never seen this before, so I was really impressed to find this online. It's a very effortless, loose fitting coat that has like a very minimal silhouette. I'm very much into this style of jacket. So the good thing about this coat is it is fully lined and it has 2 patch pockets on the front. And in the photos, they've made it in a nice lightweight wool. And I think this would work really well, obviously in wool, even like a nice viscose wool blend, so it's a bit more drapey. This doesn't seem to have any fastening, so you will actually need to use a belt to close this. So I would sew a belt definitely. I don't really like coats that don't have any fastenings on them, because obviously when it's windy, I don't know, your coat just flaps about everywhere. I like the fact that this actually has a very collarless design, so it looks very sleek and modern. I think that I'm not in love with the length that they've made it, so I think maybe to make it just feel a bit more modern and expensive, you could lengthen the hem. These are some great examples of kind of what I mean. So it's obviously lengthened, and then also they've used such a nice bright pop of color. I think that really works with this. And then I also found this example, which is a bit longer than the original pattern, but as you can see, it just feels a bit more expensive. I think it's also because of the fabric choice. I think I've realized when it comes to coats and jackets, I'm much more leaning towards like really bright pops of color, or if it's not a bright pop of color, you're going to use like a really simple fabric that doesn't have like a really like bold print on it. I just don't think I'm a huge fan of plaid or like really bright prints on fabrics that are quite obvious. I actually quite like the minimal aesthetic. So the next pattern I actually really want to sew. I've never sewn anything like this. So it's actually the Quilted Vest by Pearl Soho, and it's a sleeveless jacket that has a quilted detail, and I really love this look. It reminds me of that, what's that brand? Carhartt, where they have those cool like quilted pieces. I think I've always kind of envisioned sewing something like this and wearing it over like a cool dress or something like that. I don't know if it would really work. I don't know, it just feels really stylish to me. I think I definitely want to sew this. I think you can wear jumpers or dresses or hoodies underneath, and I just like that layered appearance it gives. So obviously it's a really simple make, but I think the fabric you use can really elevate it. I love this cream example. So this inspiration picture, they've got like a turtleneck underneath, really nice brown pants, and then they've also got this really cute quilted jacket over it, but it's obviously cream. It kind of all works in the same color palette, and I just really adore how that looks. I also found this example that I think would be so perfect if you have lots of scrap pieces in your stash. You could definitely try and make a quilted jacket out of them. So this picture works so well because obviously the scraps are all kind of colors in the same category and they're not too overpowering next to each other. So I think if you do have lots of scraps, this would be such a nice way to use them up. I also just noticed actually that the original jacket pattern doesn't have any fastenings, but all the inspiration pictures that I found do have like little clasps or fastening on. So you'd probably want to play around with maybe adding ties to the front or these little snaps to make sure you can close the jacket. The next pattern that I wanted to talk about is the Carmen Hoodie by Simply Sewing. I've always wanted to sew a hoodie. I don't know why I've not sewn one yet, because I actually wear them quite a lot when it gets colder. This is a really classic comfy hoodie pattern. So the reason why I was really gravitated towards this pattern is because of the cool color blocking effect. I like how it makes it feel a bit more different and elevated. Obviously, if you're not a fan of the color blocking, you could probably just extend the pieces and get rid of all the different sections. But I like how it kind of pushes a normal hoodie into something a bit different. I love the idea of just making a simple black hoodie with this pattern and then maybe just having the bottom section in a really bright color like an orange. I couldn't find any inspiration pictures for that, but it's a cool idea and I really want to make that. And if I do make that, I will probably post that on my Instagram. So make sure you follow me on Instagram to see if I make any of these. So the next pattern that I found is called the Diana Jacket by Sew Magazine. It's a really chic and minimal design jacket. It's very fun and it looks super beginner friendly as well if you actually look at the details. So this jacket has no lining and it's actually made out of boiled wool because obviously the seams won't fray, so you won't need to line it and you won't even need to hem it if you do it correctly. I think they actually advise bias binding the insides of the jacket just so you neaten up the insides. It doesn't look super raw, but it's a really easy beginner friendly project to do because you won't need to add a lining to this jacket. I really love how simple and folded over the collar looks like, and obviously with the waist tie it just brings everything together. I actually want to make this. I'm just a bit wary about wearing an unlined jacket in Berlin because it gets really cold, and I think this would work for now, but as soon as it gets a lot colder you will definitely need a lining with a jacket like this. But I think this would look great in any sort of pastel shade color. I found this example of a yellow coat that I really like. I love how fun and bright it feels. Just feels a bit more playful than your standard like beige jacket. So the next pattern that I found is the Peggy Trousers by Sew Magazine, and again it's a very nice chic classic pattern. It's a trouser that has a bit more of a boxy yet slim fit. So this trouser pattern does have pockets, it has front pleats, and it has a zip, which I think is really cool for something that is free. I personally love the look of these exact trousers. I like the cream corduroy fabric that they've made it in. I think for a pattern like this you definitely want to use a medium weight fabric that has structure like corduroy or even like a cotton twill to give that nice structured effect. But any sort of non-stretch woven fabrics will definitely do fine for this pattern. I found this example that I really like. So it's a really nice black trouser, but I think you could make this pattern and just roll up the hem of the trousers to get this sort of fun look, and then also tucking in like a cool turtleneck or like a t-shirt I think would look really nice. I also found this example that uses kind of like a dirty green fabric. This is actually really my vibe. I've never sewn trousers that actually fit you like this with a proper button fly down the front and like pleats or anything like that. Maybe I could actually try this pattern and let you know how it goes. But yeah, I really like this pattern. I can't believe it's free. It feels like you never really get many trouser patterns for free because they are so complex. So it's really cool to see such a trendy looking pattern for free. So the last pattern I had to talk about was obviously a promo for my Etty Camisole. I wear my Etty Camisole pattern all the time. I actually have it in quite a few colors, but the one I wear the most is the black one in the original product pictures. I think I just like wearing camisoles underneath kind of jackets or jumpers or hoodies, and it just feels like a really nice way to elevate something quite simple on top. So this specific camisole pattern has a scalloped neckline all the way down the front and a really simple straight back. It's a free pattern that's available to download on my website. I've loved seeing all your versions on Instagram. I've actually seen a lot of people make it in white, which I'd never thought of before. I think that's something I would definitely try next when I make that pattern again. Here's a great example of how you compare any sort of camisole underneath a blazer. I think that always looks really cool. And then also how I normally wear it with a jumper over a camisole or even like a hoodie paired with it. I think the reason why the Etty Camisole is so popular with you guys at the moment is definitely because it's such a simple pattern that has such a nice delicate detail on the neckline, and it just feels a bit more elevated than your standard camisole. So I'm really glad to know that you guys like it, and it's really nice to see you guys make it over on Instagram. With all my patterns you can actually just search hashtag Tammy Handmade and then the pattern name, so hashtag Tammy Handmade Etty, and it's just so cool to see everyone's versions and how they've kind of made it their own. So that's everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Let me know in the comment section if these patterns are new to you as well and which ones you would love to make. I think my favorite is probably the Carmen Hoodie and the Peggy Trousers, just because they're probably a bit more wearable in my everyday. When it gets colder, I think I like to wear kind of cozy pieces, so I think these two are definitely ones on my list. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.